What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from the Token Minorities, and I am here with Season 5, Week 8 of the National Pokeball League. This week against the king himself, Gypsy King. He is undefeated this season. He has been doing so well, especially in a league that's this competitive. Like, it's just mind-boggling that we have two undefeated teams currently going through Week 7, so it's pretty nuts that he's been doing so well, most definitely. But, you know, I actually hold him in regard as being in the top 5, if not better, probably as high as top 3, maybe even top 2 in the format, period. I think he's that good at this format, so it's going to be a challenge this week. I dedicated an insane amount of time into building my team this week. You know, that's not exactly easy to do given my schedule right now, but I did put the time in and put the effort in this week for this build because I know I really have to have any shot of winning this game, because I personally think he's better than me at the format. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but let's just say I feel prepared and ready for the challenge as well. I think I stand a good chance, and we'll just kind of see how that goes, most definitely. But give him a look as well. His channel will be in the description below. He's still a very small channel. This is his first season in the NPL or in any league that has a little bit of YouTube recognition, so definitely give him a look. I would highly recommend it for those who are interested in watching very competitive content. He's a solid player, so give him a look and you will not be disappointed for sure. So let's take a look at his roster. He has Weavile, Zapdos, Megapensor, Metagross, Miltank, Whimsicott, Emboar, Alomomola, Stunfisk, Wobbuffet, and Mew on his team. So a couple things to note on this. Well, one major thing to note is that he has not brought the Miltank even once this season, I believe. He also has not brought Wobbuffet yet, and he has also expressed to me how much he really dislikes having Wobbuffet on his team. So those are a couple relatively interesting pieces of information to have in the back of my mind whenever I'm building my team, because at face value, I actually don't like my matchup too much, and I say that because my team really has an unfortunate lack of wall breakers. Now, I know I have the potential to run something like a Specs or just offensive Sylveon in general, offensive Darmanitan as another potential offensive option, maybe Analytic Life Orb Starmie, Banded Mint, stuff like that. I have some offensive options, but he has pretty darn good responses to all of my offensive options. So with that said, my team build cannot be as linear as I would like it to be, and I also feel like, given my previous matchup against him back in the CPC tournament, I really can't run sets that my first instinct would tell me to run against him, because we think very similarly, so he's going to be able to expect those types of sets. So with that in mind, I do have to think off the wall in this game in terms of my prep, and you know, I'll show you what I decided to actually bring here shortly. But in terms of the bigger threats on his team, the Weavile is an enormous threat to my team, just enormous threat. If you look through my roster of 11, I really don't have a perfect switch into Weavile. My best switch in would be Mega Venusaur. Mega Venusaur is fodder for Megapensor, and if Megapensor gets up a Saurus Dance at any point, I am in big trouble in this game, so that's not really something I can afford to let happen. So Weavile plus Megapensor is a pretty big threat. Zapdos is really annoying for my team to take down, kind of going back to the whole not having great wall breakers idea, as he can easily run a more specially defensive Zapdos and eat up hits from my Starmie, as I don't really know if I can afford to run Ice Beam this week. I know I have to have Thunderbolt for the Alomomola, Hydro Pump for general coverage, and then from there, you know, I'll probably want something like Rapid Spin or Recover. I might want something like Trick for the potential Wobbuffet. You know, I'll show you what I end up doing there, but I really can't afford to run Ice Beam coverage, so that makes Zapdos even harder for me to take down, as I really don't have a counter to Zapdos on my entire roster. So it's, you know, it's going to be kind of tough to deal with it, although I could use something along the lines of Piloswine or Lantern. Neither of those are going to really be able to counter it, though, especially if he runs some sort of support to help keep Zapdos healthy, as the best way either of those could really damage it is by statusing, as Piloswine's not that strong, and Lantern's even weaker, so Zapdos is kind of hard for me to take down as well. And then finally, the Mew and Emboar both are pretty enormous threats to my team. Emboar just naturally is always going to be a threat against my types of drafts, because I do tend to draft more bulky offense, but, you know, this was my draft last season, I'd be a-okay against Emboar with all my priority, but that's not quite the case this time around, as Emboar is going to end up being a pretty decent threat, and Mew, of course, is a threat just due to his versatility. But if you look through his team a little bit, you also notice that he only has 3 potential rockers, those being the Mew, Stunfisk, and the Metagross. So The thing is, I really think he's forced to bring an Assault Vest Metagross against me because I do have the potential Spec Sylveon, which otherwise switches in freely against Alomomola and does a ton of damage to whatever his switch in might be. And if he doesn't have Assault Vest Metagross, that's probably easily 3-hit KO'd by his Specs Hyper Voice. And, you know, I should be able to really keep the pressure on it that way when I combine that with something like a Rocky Helmet Starmie or Rocky Helmet Bronzong, something like that could switch into Metagross and do a little more damage, put it in range of Hyper Voice. So I really think he has to run Assault Vest Metagross to make sure he can take hits from a Spec Sylveon, and you know, that's something that I'm actually going to be building around as well. I have to make certain assumptions. I feel like I have to make certain assumptions in this game, and then based upon those assumptions build my team, instead of my normal approach of basically being prepared for every single possible combination he can offer. That works whenever the battler I am competing against is at or below my level. And this is, I don't think, the case this time. I really do think he's better than me at the format. So I have to make assumptions and then build my team based on those assumptions and essentially hope for the best. That sounds like I'm kind of winging it, you know, but no, I really do think I'm confident in this strategy. I think it's a good strategy, and I'm willing to accept the loss if the strategy does not work out. But I do think that I have a solid game plan in mind as to what the best team is to bring against him. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and hop right on over to that team. So looks like my EVs got messed up again. Wonderful. So is it 244 here? Showdown's a great program. This looks correct. Yeah, this looks, well, okay, it should be an odd HP stat. It's almost right. Anyways, so what we have here, we have Sylveon with Sub-Baton Pass, Wish, and Hyper Voice. So this set is designed to beat 2 different Pokemon on his team, and you know, also be a decent check to a couple others. So this can take advantage. It can abuse Alomomola, as every time he goes into Alomomola, I have both Sylveon as a switch in as well as Starmie, which I'll show here in a little bit, and that's a free substitute on whatever he wants to switch in. Now you'll notice that I have a lot of speed on this Sylveon. I have that speed to outpace a standard Assault Vest Metagross with an additional 4 EVs in speed, as he has run Assault Vest Metagross in the past, and most of the time when he does run Assault Vest Metagross, it is 0 speed. This set would outpace a 4-speed Metagross, meaning that I'm able to Baton Pass away my substitute immediately, as I Baton Pass that into my Bronzong here with a Rocky Helmet that I'll talk about more in a bit, meaning that Metagross takes damage from the Rocky Helmet, as well as probably not breaking the sub on the incoming Bronzong. So I think that strategy is really good for taking advantage of the Alomomola. This strategy is also nice because it ensures that I cannot be trapped by Wobbuffet, which I believe could also be his strategy in terms of trying to handle a Spec Sylveon. So this handles both of those really well. Hyper Voice is excellent coverage against the rest of his team. Quite honestly, with not having any special attack investment, it's not going to be OHKOing very much outside of the Weavile, but it still does a chunk to Mega Pinsir, it does a chunk to Non-Spadef Mew, and you know, it's just overall good against his team, as his only resistance is the Metagross, and I'm trying to take advantage of that with the Baton Pass plus Rocky Helmet Bronzong. So you know, this set I think is pretty solid against him overall, and yeah, so then I just have the extra investment in defense because most of his attackers are indeed physical, and I wanted to be able to survive any one hit from Mega Pinsir. So, you know, that's also a general concept throughout my entire team. I don't want anything on my team to be OHKO'd by Mega Pinsir, and, you know, I did manage to achieve that with this build, so that will ensure that he cannot get up a +2 at any point with his Mega Pinsir, and, you know, that's all I really need to accomplish here with this team. So that is the Sylveon leftovers for general recovery, and then we do have the Bronzong on the Rocky Helmet. This is my Stealth Rocker number 1. I do have 2 of them this week actually, and I have Toxic, Rock Slide, and Earthquake. Earthquake to hit the Metagross specifically, Rock Slide to hit essentially everything else, and then Toxic for the ever so likely Zapdos switch into this. His primary switch in is surely going to be Zapdos to try to defog away the rocks, because his team really is very, very weak to Stealth Rocks, and that's why I decided to bring 2 Stealth Rockers this week against him, as I really could afford to do so given the team I was making, as the general concept of this team is to chip away chip away, and let him wear himself down to the point where he's in range of a Sash Lucario sweep. So that's the game plan this week, and I'm pretty confident in this game plan as well. I think it should work out, as he hasn't brought Miltank once this week. Miltank is his only means of getting rid of statuses. I believe it's his only Heal Beller. I might be wrong on that. Mew might be able to get Heal Bell as well, but if he brings Heal Bell on Mew, then that's making it, you know, less of a threat in my opinion offensively. So I'd be pretty okay with that if he brought Heal Bell Mew. But yeah, so I have Toxic on this, Rock Slide to hit things, Earthquake to hit the Metagross, and Stealth Rock and its max defense essentially, so that I can take hits from his physical hitters as well as possible. I don't think this survives a Life Orb knockoff from Weavile, but he can't KO me with Pursuit at least, which is pretty nice, and I'll break any potential Focus Sashes with the Rocky Helmet there, as well as be able to switch in this for free against a Pinsir clicking Return. Pinsir cannot OHKO me with knockoff, so I'd be able to do a ton of damage to it with Rocky Helmet plus Rock Slide, be, you know, very, very close to taking out Mega Pinsir, if not actually finish the job. So this is also nice and toxic incoming Alomomola and his Mew and stuff like that. Just overall, this is nice utility against this team, especially in terms of wearing down the Metagross after I Baton Pass from Sylveon. So next up is the Starmie. This set is a lure for Weavile, as with this 132 investment in defense, I am guaranteed to survive a knockoff with the Culpa Berry after Stealth Rock from a Life Orb Jolly Weavile, which I don't think he can afford to run Adamant, because that would say that, or that would mean that he could not outspeed certain mons on my team, namely the Starmie. So he's going to have to run a Jolly Weavile, probably Life Orb. He's run Life Orb almost every single time this season, so it makes a lot of sense for him to do that here. I am Natural Cure over the Analytic ability this time, so that I can switch into Alomomola freely, as I do need that free switch into Alomomola so that I can pressure whatever he's trying to pass the wish to, as Starmie really is able to pretty well pressure whatever he wants to pass wishes to this game, which is pretty nice, as well as at least Toxic whatever that switch in may be, and be in a good position that way. So I'm really spreading the status around in this game, if you couldn't tell, and we'll just kind of see how that goes. But, you know, I think this thing should put in a good amount of work in this game. In terms of the speed investment here, I am actually speed creeping anything on his team that is speed creeping a base 100 of mine. And the scary thing on that is that means I do not necessarily outpace Mega Pinsir, but he is the kind of person to always, kind of like me, he always speed creeps the highest thing possible, usually with his wall breakers being like Mega Pinsir. He's going to speed creep at base 100 so that he outpaces my Salamence, and that means I'm going to try to take advantage of that here, which allows me to have that little bit of extra bulk and a little bit of extra power on this Starmie, and we'll just kind of see how that goes. I don't think he'll change that up for this game, but if he does, then hey, he got me. But kind of like I said, I have to take a few risks in my prep, and this is one of those risks that I am willing to take. So next up is the Darm. This set is pretty good, if I do say so myself. This is my counter to Weavile. So Weavile, you know, is just terrifying to me, but this thing switches in on Weavile and doesn't care, as I'm not holding an item. I think knockoff does like under 30 to this thing because I have so much defense investment and no item. And that's from a Jolly Life Orb Weavile, so this thing just switches in easily against it. This also is it's an okay switch into Metagross, as I should be able to outpace, again, an Assault Vest Metagross. It's the same speed investment, I believe, as my Sylveon was, so I can outpace a 0 speed invested Metagross or even a 4 speed invested Metagross with this set, and do a ton of damage to it with Flare Blitz or Wisp if I don't think I can quite take it out from the range it's at. So that's pretty nice. This is also a great initial switch into Mew, as this can eat up absolutely any initial hit that Mew goes for. Even a +2 Earthquake cannot, I do not believe, will OHKO this set. I might be wrong on that. I'll need to run that calc before the battle, but I'm pretty sure a +2 Earthquake cannot OHKO me here. So that's pretty good as well, meaning the Darm is pretty nice against his offenses, essentially. This thing really should give him a hard time this week, and having Will-O-Wisp again ensures that I can't be trapped by Wobbuffets, and it's just general nice coverage against this entire team. This also could take any hit from Emboar that's not like a banded head smash, so that's a pretty good deal as well. And yeah, we'll kind of see how that set works out this week. And then we have the Aerodactyl, my third response to Weavile, noticing a trend here, I'm a little bit terrified of Weavile, so I really have to have a lot of ways to deal with it, as I have the Yachi Berry on this, I have the Colbur on Starmie, and I have the Darm dedicated switch into Weavile, so I have 3 ways to deal with Weavile. I will not let it beat me this game. It's a huge threat to my team, but I have to be ready for it, and we'll just kind of see how that goes. But I do have Unnerve to make sure that Charty Berry Zapdos is not relevant. He did try to bring that against Aberforth in week 1 or 2 whenever they played, whenever Aberforth had the Aerodactyl, and, you know, Unnerve does ignore berries, so that's pretty nice there. And then I have Taunt Hone Claws, Taunt to help against maybe a defensive boosting Pokemon like a Mew or something like that. It's also nice for the Wobbuffet, as then I can just set up in its face with Hone Claws, and it won't be able to Encore me there, and I can just get a ton of damage off. With Stone Edges, that will be boosted in accuracy. I believe it's over 100% accuracy after 1 Hone Edge, so after 1 Hone Claws, rather. Okay, so that's a pretty good deal here too. I'm able to only outspeed a max speed Jolly Weavile. I don't think I'll need to outpace that, but I didn't really need any extra bulk, and we'll just see how that goes. But I do have Stealth Rock on this as well as my second Stealth Rocker. I'm trying to keep rocks up the entire game here. This definitely pressures Zapdos if he wants to make Zapdos be his primary defogger in this game, as he only really has 2 options to defog, those being Zapdos and Mew, so I feel like I should be able to keep rocks up well, especially if I'm able to get Aerodactyl in several times throughout the game, as he can't switch Zapdos in against this. He just can't, otherwise he risks being destroyed. So that is the Aerodactyl, and then finally we have the late game cleaner, the Sashed Lucario, Swords Dance, E-Speed, Stone Edge, and Close Combat. I don't know if he can afford to outspeed this with Zapdos. That is something that I'm a little bit unsure on. I feel like he might, but I feel like he might not. It's a tough call, as this thing would love to set up on Zapdos, get a free +2 on the Heat Wave, and then go for a Stone Edge and just knock out Zapdos, and then potentially clean up the rest of his team with E-Speed. It's that big of a threat to his team, as this also, I believe, outpaces most Metagross, so that's pretty nice for sure. As +2 Close Combat would do a ton to Metagross. The only downside to this set is that I do not have super effective coverage for the Mew. Excuse me. And, you know, that might come into play if he's a defensive Mew, as defensive Mew definitely could wall this, but if I can chip away at the Mew well enough with the Darm, maybe just burn it with Darm, Toxic it with Starmie, something like that, then this should be able to take it on pretty decently. But, you know, I think this is a pretty good late game win con, regardless of what he brings. It's just a matter of finding the opportunity to set up that free Swords Dance, maybe even force a switch in the process if there's like a Weavile in front of me, or if there is like a well, even Wobbuffet, I guess. Even Wobbuffet, I can set up in a Wobbuffet's face, because even if he Encores me, then I can still get off another Swords Dance on the turn after. I get off another Swords Dance on the last turn of the Encore, and then I'm back, essentially ready to chug away once the Encore ends, when I'm at +6 and my Focus Sash is broken, but I'm still at 1 HP. So, you know, Lucario could definitely be pretty darn good against his team this game. So that is what I decided to bring. Definitely a very long team builder this time. I do apologize for that. Didn't expect it to go that long, but, you know, I spent a lot of time on this team, and, you know, I kind of had to for this matchup, so we'll see what happens. I'm pretty excited for the game. You know, I've been looking forward to this one for quite some time, as it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one, and let's just go ahead and hop right on over there just a sec. Alright, and here we are with the team preview, and as you can see, he brought the Miltank, Mega Pinsir, Mew, Zapdos, Alomomola, and the Metagross. So more or less, this is the team I anticipated, the rather large exception to that being the Miltank, as, you know, there's no Weavile here, and the Miltank is instead in the Weavile slot, and here I thought Weavile had a very, very good matchup against my team. Really, anyone looking at this matchup at face value would say the same thing as well, but I guess maybe he expected me to somewhat over-prepare for it, and I kind of did, having the Darm as a counter as well as 2 lures to it as well with the Colbur Starmie and Yachi Aerodactyl, but you know, he didn't even bring the Weavile, and instead he brought this Miltank, which may or may not be a problem. It kind of depends on what his actual set is this game, because, you know, as you know, my team is very status reliant this week, in that I'm wanting to really spam those statuses to try to wear him down, and if this Miltank has Heal Bell, then that actually puts a rather large dent in that plan, and will essentially prolong the game a lot. And, you know, you'll kind of see how that ends up going down here pretty soon. But in terms of the things I'm kind of concerned about, those are pretty easily the Mega Pinsir, Mew, and the Zapdos, as all three of those are relatively annoying for my team to deal with. Pinsir offensively is kind of annoying. It's not really going to be a setup threat against my team because I have no intentions of letting it get any free Swords Dances off, but you know, Mew could be difficult just because of its versatility, and it really is. There's a few good sets that are pretty effective against my team. My team in general kind of struggles with bulky psychic types, so Mew could certainly pose quite a threat to me. And then finally the Zapdos, as I really don't have any amazing wall breakers on this particular build. The Aerodactyl does check it pretty well for sure because I do have the max attack investment on this, but without a Life Orb or a Choice Band or some way to boost my item, I still don't think I can OHKO with a Stone Edge. And you know, Sylveon, Starmie, Lucario, all these can't OHKO Zapdos without any prior damage on it, so Zapdos is kind of annoying for my team, but I did anticipate that he would bring it, so of course I have plenty of ways to deal with it. But, you know, overall, I think he brought essentially the team I prepared for. I'm just hoping the Miltank doesn't become quite too big of an issue for my strategy this game. But let's just go ahead and jump on into the lead matchup a little bit. So I am somewhat expecting him to lead Zapdos, as I did not bring either my Lantern or my Pilot Swine this week, so he brings Volt Switch, Zapdos like almost every single week. So I'm pretty confident that he's going to try to lead Zapdos or with a Stealth Rocker if he has one. But with that in mind, we are going to go ahead and lead Aerodactyl because that does deny rocks with Taunt as well as immediately threaten the Zapdos. So let's just go ahead and hop right on into this and see if we can take him down. So I do lead off with my Aerodactyl as he decides to lead off with Zapdos, which is fine. Here, my best play is to scout for the Choice Scarf, so I am going to go into my Sylveon, as this also serves as a nice option for him trying to scout for a Sashed Aerodactyl. So both of those are pretty possible options, and this allows me to sub up on the incoming Alomomola, which was my game plan there. So now I do get off the free sub, and here I'm able to scout what the speed investment is on this Metagross, as I am indeed speed creeping a 4 speed Assault Vest Metagross, which is what I anticipated this week, but he turns out to actually outspeed me and breaks my sub with an Earthquake before I Baton Pass into the Bronzong. Now here I'm going to go straight for my rocks, easily my best play, as his Metagross is not going to want to stay in, and now expecting him to go for a Defog instead of a Heat Wave, I'll go ahead and fire off a Toxic. Now on this turn I'm going to go ahead and stay in and go for my rocks again to try to pressure him to defog, and I know that I can pretty easily get my health back on Bronzong every single time he goes into Metagross, as Metagross is his dedicated switch into Sylveon, so that whole situation works in my favor pretty frequently with how I'm going to be able to pass wishes to my Bronzong. So here, the Toxic has whittled him down to about 76%, which is actually pretty nice, but you know, I need him a little bit weaker than that before I can take him out immediately with any of my mons outside of Aerodactyl. So here, of course, I'm going to go straight for the Wish, and I'm going to pass it directly into my Bronzong, as this will indeed let my Bronzong get back up to essentially maximum health as he goes for the Meteor Mash and takes the Rocky Helmet damage. Now this damage is pretty crucial because even if he's a max HP Metagross, this now ensures that he is in range of a +2 close combat from my Focus Sash Lucario, so Bronzong did his job just with that small entry into the game. So now my best switch into the Mew is my Darmanitan, as it's basically good against any kind of Mew. Even if he packs Earthquake, I don't think he can actually 2-hit KO me unless he's Life Orb, so Darm coming in clutch here with the defensive build, as that Zen Headbutt does absolutely nothing to me, and with rocks on the field, Darm in play, this is looking really nice for me right now. So now I am going to go straight for the Will-O-Wisp. If he stays in, that's awesome, I get to burn the Mew. If he goes into Alomomola, that's also okay. It's more likely for that to be the case, obviously, as you can see here, as now I have the Alomomola status, and you know, the process of slowly wearing him down is now in progress, so we'll see if I can keep that up throughout this game. So now I'm going to go into my Starmie, as it is a dedicated switch into the Alomomola. I'm somewhat fearing the Mirror Coat still at this point, so I am going to go for the Hydro instead of the Thunderbolt, because Hydro would not do enough to Alomomola to where he'd be able to revenge KO me with a Mirror Coat, and you know, it's pretty obvious that he was going to end up switching anyways, so I felt Hydro was my best play, as he does just go for the Thunder Wave with his Miltank, which is a little bit scary, but it does tell me that he's probably a slower Miltank, which actually could come into play here later on. And one note on this, I do want to pause here briefly, as Miltank does have a lot of pretty good abilities in this game, just in general, as it does have, I believe, Sap Sipper, Thick Fats, and Scrappy. Obviously, he's not going to bring Scrappy against my team, so the two possible options are Thick Fat and Sap Sipper, and I have a Mega Venusaur on my team that's is actually a pretty big nuisance to what he actually brought, and seeing how little damage this Miltank took from the Hydro Pump tells me that it's especially defensive, certainly especially defensive. So that means that it's probably Sap Sipper and not Thick Fat. and to couple with that, he also has the Almamola, so I'm pretty sure that this is going to be a Sap Sipper Miltank and not a Thick Fat Miltank. I don't think he's that deathly afraid of a Darmanitan to have both Thick Fat on the Miltank and an Almamola in this match. I really don't think so, so I think it makes a lot more sense for him to be Sap Sipper here, and that's why I decided to go into my Darm, as it's probably a pretty safe switch in, and regardless of anything, I can still go for a Will-O-Wisp against this pretty freely. So let's go ahead and continue, as now I'm going to miss my Will-O-Wisp. Not a huge deal in the long run, as I do manage to land my second Will-O-Wisp, meaning that the next Earthquake will not be able to take me out. As it goes for the Thunder Wave, which is kind of annoying because now I do have to risk the potential full paralysis here, but fortunately, as he does reveal the Heal Bell, which is really annoying, fortunately, I'll be able to just rest that off here, and yeah, so then we're in pretty good shape there. But, you know, him having the Heal Bell really is going to prolong this game, which is, you know, kind of annoying, definitely. Very annoying, definitely, because I really didn't want this to be a super long game, but it's kind of looking like it might be now. I will pause here again. Here he makes an interesting play and goes into his Mew directly against the Darmanitan. You know, after knowing his full Mew set, I thought this was a very reckless play on his part that he probably should not have gone for, as I do manage to Sleep Talk the Flare Blitz, and even with no attack investment on this Darm, this still does a ton, like, what was it, 70% to the Mew, so that's pretty awesome. Darm is really powerful here, but we do get a big chunk of damage off on the Mew, and he's going to be forced to switch out. I'm just going to go ahead and burn my second turn of Sleep and go for that Sleep Talk. Maybe I'll be able to land a Will-O-Wisp on the incoming Almamola, but unfortunately I don't quite pull that off here, and now I'm going to be able to switch straight on out, probably into my Starmie, as, you know, it's a very nice switch into the Almamola. His Mew is weakened enough to where it's still in range of Hydro and even T-Bolt, and, you know, he can still go on Zapdos if he wants. If I manage to get a critical hit with the Hydro, that'll take out the Zapdos, but more importantly, I'll pause here again because this is actually kind of an important part of the match too. So even if I didn't get the critical hit on the Zapdos on that turn, it would have been really nice to see that damage, because right now all I really know about the Zapdos is its offensive abilities, and, you know, that it's not particularly offensive. It's somewhat offensive, but not entirely. So if I had knowledge of the damage output from this Hydro Pump, then I would know essentially what its investment, I would have a better idea of what its EV spread is, as it still could be physically defensive, and I would have no idea, honestly, but it'd be nice to have a gauge for the amount of HP it has. Maybe it's actually especially defensive Zapdos. I really don't know, because I wasn't able to land that Hydro Pump, and it would have been nice to have a decent idea of where its speed tier is lying in this game, because that plays a big role in terms of Lucario's game plan later on in the match. So continuing, he does manage to get back up to essentially full health with his Zapdos, which is, you know, pretty annoying to say the least, but I am going to go straight into my Sylveon, as he certainly has Roost as his last move, and therefore I do not think he has the Toxic, so Sylveon is pretty safe here, and this will allow me to go straight for the Hyper Voice, expecting him to try to pull a switch into something that was more offensive to take advantage of the potential substitute or Wish here. So Hyper Voice was the play, and I'm able to get the Pinsir into extreme speed range from the Lucario as well, so it's really looking nice for Lucario at this point if I can just get him in at the right time. Now here I'm going to pause again briefly, as I do anticipate him to expect my switch into Bronzong, and go for a Swords Dance or something, or even a knockoff potentially on that turn. So that's why I go straight into my Aerodactyl here. I really wasn't fearing losing the amount of health that I would from a knockoff, an unboosted knockoff, or if he decided to go for a return for some reason. I still felt like Aerodactyl was my best play here because I'm not Focus Sashed, I'm Yache Berry, and he didn't even bring the Weavile, so it's not like I need to keep this thing super healthy in this game. You know, I'm going to easily be in range of Bullet Punch for Metagross now, but I can't hit Metagross anyways offensively, so I only have Stone Edge for my offenses, so Aerodactyl was pretty easily my best play here as he goes for the Swords Dance, so I got that play right relatively, and now I'm going to be able to force him out and go straight for the Stone Edge. I'm not going to overpredict with a threat in my face, and we get off a nice 31% against the Almamola, revealing that he's indeed has a lot of special defense investment on this as well. A fair amount. I shouldn't say a lot, but it definitely has a fair amount of special defense investment, so also good to know in terms of Lucario later on in the game. So now I'm going to go straight into my Darm. It's maybe not the best play in the world, but I thought there was a good chance he would try to Wish Pass into his Mew, and I wanted to be able to immediately threaten that with my Darmanitan, so that's why I made that play, and I'm going to fire out the Will-O-Wisp against the Aloe. As he Scald me again, I'm again risking a crit in that situation, but I felt like it was necessary unnecessary, because at this point I kind of think it's good to try to stall out this Miltank's heal bells, because that could really be annoying later in the game, as my primary, I shouldn't say my primary way, one of my easiest ways to win this game would be to stall him out of heal bells and status him to death, but you know, I'm going to have to really spam those statuses in order to pull that off here, and I've got to basically force the Miltank in, force it to heal bell repeatedly, and then we'll be in good shape. But that's just one win condition. I also have the option of going for the Lucario sweep here later on in the game, which I'm still trying to find the opportunity to do that, but we'll get to that here pretty soon. But I do reveal the T-Bolt there on the Alomomola, as it takes like nothing from that, so that stupid fish is so fat. But here I'm going to pull the switch into my Sylveon, expecting him to maybe go into his Miltank, or you know, Zapdos or anything like that to try to get off a heal bell. And I'm going to take this as an opportunity to go for my substitutes, as it's pretty free. I know his only attacking move is Earthquake. I believe I know that at this point. His only attacking move is Earthquake, even if he hasn't revealed it yet. So Sylveon is definitely going to be able to set up a free substitute on this, because I am almost fully defensive. Now here, let's pause. Let's see, is it this turn? It was the turn before this. So the turn before this, I did get fully paralyzed, and again, I had gone for a Hyper Voice on that turn, expecting him to switch into something, probably a Zapdos, and I really wanted to gauge the damage on the Zapdos. Unfortunately, full paralysis. It's wonderful. So that's the second time this game that I'm not quite able to gauge the investment on that Zapdos, and because of that, I have no idea if my Lucario outspeeds it. So that's kind of annoying to say the least, but it gets a little bit worse. So as you can see, this turn I go for the Wish, and I believe that this turn right here is the pivotal moment of the match. Okay, so I am a Sylveon behind a substitute with a Wish up. I click Baton Pass this turn. Okay, so let's take a look at what he has on his team right now. He has a Zapdos at 88%. He has a Miltank that is apparently very specially defensive, and with T-Wave, so it's likely pretty slow, meaning it probably does not outpace Lucario. He has a Pinsir at 33%, a Mew at 23%, Metagross that is in range of a +2 close combat because of the Rocky Helmet damage, and then a Zapdos that dies to a +2 Stone Edge from my Lucario. Now, if I Baton Passed this turn, like I wanted to, I'd go into my Lucario, and as you can see, the Heat Wave did not break my sub, so I would be Baton Passing a sub into a Lucario which is Focus Sashed, meaning that I would have an absolutely 100% free Swords Dance on the following turn. Now, on top of that, I would also immediately know if the Zapdos outsped my Lucario on that turn. So, if it wasn't already obvious, I get paralyzed on this turn. So I'm not able to switch Baton Pass, the sub, into my Lucario and get that free +2. Now, his entire team was in range of a +2 Lucario. Stone Edge knocked out Zapdos. Close Combat plus Extreme Speed knocked out the rest of his team. He did not have Feint on his Mega Pinsir. He had Quick Attack. Lucario won the game, or at least put in a ton of work against this team, maybe even taken out half of his team in the process of him being able to eventually take me out. But the fact remains that if I punch a hole in his team, it opens up holes for the rest of my squad. I still had Aerodactyl at full health. I still had Starmie at very high health. Starmie's a huge nuisance to his team, especially after he sacks whatever he's likely to sack to the Lucario, and Darm is a massive threat to his team as well, most definitely. So, you know, it's... man... It's kind of sucks, because I somewhat put myself in that position by letting the Sylveon get paralyzed, but still, 25% is 25%, and it was definitely fully paralyzed more than 25% of the time in this match. But even so, let's just go ahead and continue, and we'll come back to this here later in the game. So, continuing now, I do get my health fully back from Sylveon. Unfortunately, I don't have Lucario in right now, but now I'm going to be able to go straight for another sub, knowing that his Volt Switch will be able to break mine, and expecting somewhat the Alomomola to come back in as well. So now I am going to be able to either fire off a Hyper Voice or go ahead and try to Baton Pass again. I do go for the Hyper Voice option, just trying to do more damage to this Alomomola as he reveals the Healing Wish. So now his Mew is back, and if Lucario was in, applying that offensive pressure, this situation could not have happened at this stage in the game. He would have had to lose 1 or 2 Pokemon, if not all 6, before he'd be able to pull that off. and now I'm back in a bad position because this Mew is sub bulk up, and I have so little for sub bulk up whenever I'm behind in terms of momentum. So now I'm going to go into my Aerodactyl. I have to fire off a taunt. It's really my only play because I can't let this thing get higher than +1 defense, and he tries to go for the bulk up on that turn. Good on him. Fortunately for me, I'm able to stop him from doing that. I do reveal the Home Claws here, as this was intended to set up on Wobbuffet, and he just goes for the Zen Headbutt, breaks my sub pretty easily. I'm not fearing him taking me out with the next attack. There's nothing he can do to really take me out here unless he has... see, I don't believe he's revealed a recovery move at this point. If he has, then I apologize for missing that, but I don't think he has revealed it, so I don't think he'll have super effective coverage for Aerodactyl anyways. He tries to go for Zen, then he misses the second Zen Headbutt, and I will pause here as well. So on this turn, it was somewhat of a 50-50 as well on the following turn, which I'll go ahead and show as well, as I do go for Stone Edge again as he takes me out with his Headbutt. So those two plays were both 50-50s. I feel like his better play was probably to just go for a recovery move if he had it, which he does reveal here soon to actually have, as he would have gained leftovers recovery with his Mew essentially if I'd gone for a taunt there. And I would have put him in a decent position anyways, as he really wasn't going to be severely weakened one way or the other by going for a soft boil. They're trying to go for a recovery move on that turn, so just my opinion there, but it is what it is, and I managed to win those two 50-50s and get the Mew pretty severely weakened, unfortunately losing my Aerodactyl in the process, which was one of my better responses to the Mega Pinsir. That said, I do have the Lucario still with the Sash intact to be able to handle Mega Pinsir if need be. So here I go into my Starmie and just fire off the Toxic, as he does reveal the soft boil, so there's the recovery move. And now I'm going to pull the double into my Bronzong, as with the Mew Toxic, Bronzong is very, very free against him, and I'll be able to just chip away at him with Rocky Helmet damage, but he makes a very nice play and goes straight into his Zapdos, not wanting to let me get free rocks, and also being able to threaten me with the Heat Wave, as I am going to switch out. I don't want to take that Heat Wave damage, and I'll go straight into my Sylveon, as he does like nothing to the Sylveon, which is pretty cool. This is another opportunity to try to set up a substitute if I so choose. I could also go for a Wish or a Hyper Voice. I have a lot of options on this turn, as he does Volt Switch into the Miltank, as I go again for the Hyper Voice, showing this does so little damage. This is easily especially defensive Miltank. Sylveon, even without much special attack investment, hits really hard, so that did very little. And now I'm going to go straight into my Bronzong again, kind of expecting the Heal Bell, just wanting to get my rocks back up if I can. I could also fire off Toxic to burn more Heal Bells. All of those are pretty good options against him at this point, but he is going to go straight into his Zapdos essentially every time, and here he can Defog or Heat Wave. I expect him to Defog first, but he does make the better play initially and going for the Heat Wave, as I fire off the Toxic again, trying to pressure the Miltank into going for Heal Bells, because my way of winning this game at this point is to force him to use all of his Heal Bells. That's the only way I can win now, I think, because I don't think I'm going to have such a perfect opportunity for my Lucario again, especially with the Mew being so healthy at this point. So I really lost my opportunity there, thanks to Parahacks. Wonderful. So here he is going to go into his Mew as I get fully paralyzed. It's not 25% chance, guys. There's no way it's 25%. Not as consequential there, though I would have liked to have the damage or the Wish off. I don't remember what I went for on that turn, honestly, but here I'm going to go in my Bronzong, and I will pause here, as this was probably, I would say, I may have two misplays, probably just this misplay, probably my only misplay in this game, as by going into Bronzong here against the Mew, it's essentially a free substitute. The sub was so obvious, and I think I made this play a little bit rashly. It was not really smart on my end to make this play, because I really don't benefit from it at all. I was kind of hoping to catch him, get cheeky, and try to paraflinch my Sylveon down with the Mew, but, he's not going to make that play. Sub is so free against me, and he has recovery, so there's nothing to fear in terms of my Sylveon. So that was a misplay on my end, and it's going to cost me, unfortunately, as now I'm going to have to switch straight on out into my Starmie. It's kind of a last-ditch effort here. I have to go straight into Starmie, I have to break the substitute, and I feel like I have to fire off a Toxic as well to just continue to pressure the Miltank into burning up its Heal Bells. It's very, very risky on my end to go for a Toxic on this next turn, as he easily could just go for the Zen Headbutt and take me out. This was the other play that I'm just kind of like, it could have been a misplay, but I still stand by my decision, because I really do think the only way I could have won this game is to force the Heal Bells to expire, and I could have prolonged the game by keeping Starmie alive in that situation, but he would be a +2/+2 right now if I had a Toxic on him, and it would just be a bad time, honestly. So here I'm going to again try to switch into my Bronzong after I have the Mew Toxic. He makes the nice play again and going into his Zapdos. I lose my Bronzong to the Heat Wave here, trying to I don't know. At this point, it's kind of futile. I could have gone into my Sylveon. I was somewhat expecting him to go for a Volt Switch, but he goes for Heat Wave and takes out my Bronzong, so more power to him, I guess, as here I essentially have to go for game with my Lucario, as I don't know if I outspeed him. I have no way of knowing because my 2 attempts did not work against him due to a miss in the paralysis, but you know, I had to try, and if I did outspeed the Zapdos, if he was a more defensive variant, then I would have a chance. I don't think I'd be able to win. I think Mew is essentially at full. It won't show up for some reason, but Mew is like close to full health right now, so I would not be able to win the game at this point. But, you know, I had to try, and if I was able to get off the +2 here with this, outspeeding the Zapdos, I could follow it up with the Stone Edge, and then I could follow that up with a +2 E-Speed against the Mew, or I guess the Stone Edge might have been my better play, as if I outsped this, I definitely outsped the Mew. Let's see, my Darm outsped the Mew, so I would outspeed the Mew with this as well. So I'd go for Stone Edge against the Mew, and you know, I could crit and take it out. I could also weaken it to the point where it's in range of my Starmie, and then, you know, I'd be in an okay position. I don't think I'd be able to win this game regardless at this point unless I stall him out of Heal Bells, but, you know, I had to try here, and unfortunately I do underspeed the Zapdos, meaning my best play now is just to go for the E-Speed to get off the damage, putting him in range of Starmie, and I'm going to lose my Lucario here, and essentially my last fast option of winning the game, really my last chance of winning the game, period, as now my only play is to go into Darm and make a series of very repetitive plays, trying to put myself in a position where I have the Miltank severely weakened, where I have my Darmanitan at pretty high health, to the point where, nearly max health, to the point where I can take the hit from Mega Pinsir. You know, that's pretty hard to accomplish, quite honestly, as I think Mega Pinsir's return still does like 70 to 80% to this Darmanitan set, so, man, Mega Pinsir's so strong, and it's going to be really tough to get myself in the right position, because he does have access to T-Wave. He can always Parahax me later on. He also has Earthquake, so he has the super effective coverage for the Darmanitan, and you know, I'm going to have to continue to roll Will-O-Wisps with my Darmanitan to be able to 1v1 the Miltank to a point where I'm at a good amount of health in the end. But, you know, I still take recoil from the Flare Blitz whenever I eventually try to deal with this Miltank, but you know, it is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and speed through these last turns, as it is incredibly repetitive, and it just keeps going, let's see, probably pretty soon, there we go. So eventually Mega Pinsir just ends up being able to come in as I get tired of the whole stall war. I just go for the attack on Miltank and accept the 4-0 defeat, as Mega Pinsir does clean me up. So that was a good game. You know, he's solid. He's really, really good at the format. It's kind of painful. It's kind of a painful loss too, to an extent, because I really do think that, like, I don't want to claim that I would have won, because, like, Gypsy is so good late game. He could easily come back from really any position, but I would have been in a 100% fantastic position if I was able to baton pass that substitute into my Lucario, and, you know, even if I just had the knowledge of Zapdos' speed tier, I would have been able to do a lot more, I think, this game with my Lucario, as Sash Lucario, especially with a substitute pass to it, was so effective against his team. So, you know, it's kind of sad that that's how it kind of went down, but all in all, it still was a very good game, and it's hard to be mad about losing to Gypsy, because, you know, I wasn't really expected to win either, I don't think. So coming that close and knowing that, you know, if I got the 75% instead of the 25% and didn't get paralyzed on that turn, then I had a very good shot of winning. You know, that's pretty good too, I think. You know, it was a good game. Definitely go check out Gypsy's side. It'll be on his channel, which will be linked in the description below, as I mentioned before. Solid content creator. Give him a look, and you will not be disappointed there. But thanks for watching, guys. Next week, we have a game against Dallas Boy 1992's San Antonio Swamperts. Now, if you've been following me for a while in the NPL, you would know that my season last season was undefeated until I encountered Dallas in week like 8 or 9, like pretty late in the season, and he beat me. So we need to deal out some revenge for that. And his team is pretty threatening. He has Lando Eyes, so he's got a threat on his team, to say the least, as well as a few other pretty threatening mons. But, you know, we'll see what we can do. I'm looking forward to the match for sure, and I guess we'll see how that goes. But thanks for watching, guys. I hope you did enjoy, despite the fact that this battle was really, really long. This video in general was really, really long, so I do apologize for that, but I hope you enjoyed regardless, as it really was a good match. It was definitely a good match, and props to Gypsy for now being 8-0. He's 8-0. He faces the other 8-0 team here next week in Matty Brawlick, so we're looking forward to that one for sure. All of us are. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you all next week. Peace.